Hey, deserving listeners, love is blind. Let's see what happens.
The top
Right,
two.
right.
I think I told Brennan, I was like, remember when you gave me a panic attack?
About what?
Because he's the one that, it was the rejection for me.
He shut you down, huh?
Yeah, him and Cole.
Y'all talked about that a little bit last night?
I think so. I really...
What do you think about Cole?
Okay, so we're seeing a conversation with Colleen and Matt. They are reviewing having met their pod people, and Colleen is being honest with Matt because he'll find out eventually anyway because he'll watch the show potentially or see the tweets. And she's saying that Brennan and Cole had rejected her. And for Matt, that can really do a number on your mind, right? I'll even hear people say that when they meet someone and they learn that their partner had a previous relationship in which their partner was dumped, you know, in the distant past, it can have an effect on it. Now, not everyone, but it can have a, so for Matt, there's a possibility that he could feel like, am I getting, you know, someone who was discarded by someone else? I just think we have this weird way of thinking about that. It doesn't make any sense, right? In all likelihood, everyone that you fall in love with was dumped in the past by someone, you know, so it doesn't mean that you're not a good match. Also for Matt, he could feel like, so wait, you chose Cole and he rejected you, then you chose Brennan, he rejected you, and then you chose me. So do you really love me, or am I just like consolation prize or something? That would be rational because he doesn't really know Colleen all that well. So maybe Colleen will intuit that and take care of Matt in this process. You know, but the other thing is Colleen still might not exactly know how she feels. I can't imagine any of these folks really feel solid in their feelings towards their people, but let's see what Colleen does.
He was quieter than...
He's kind of...
Because he was so like bubbly in the pods.
He's a good talker.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I feel like he was quieter. At the same time, like, I always knew it was you.
Exactly.
So I was like, oh, that's my guy.
Yep.
Okay, so she is narrativizing it in a way that is much more romantic, and maybe she even believes that to be true, and maybe it was true. It certainly didn't look that way, right? And if that's true, then why did you really go for Cole and then Brennan? But that is a good way out for the two of them to just change the details or change the meaning of everything. It's, you know, she's, I think, essentially saying, look, I knew you were the one for me, but I needed to figure out with these other two people or something like that, right? And then he's like, yeah, exactly. So they're both deciding on a narrative that is more romantic and more palatable for the two of them.
Matt's my guy.
I say the only one that I really dated was Alexa.
Yeah, but
it was more like best friend vibes.
Friends.
You know what I mean? It was.
And like only these people understand, like, doing this whole
I'll say we can relate.
Another way that you could narrativize it is, if you're calling, you'd be like, yeah, I mean, in the pods, I liked you, I liked Brennan, I liked Cole, but I hadn't met you in person, and now that I've met you in person and I've seen the other guys, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, you, Matt, are the one for me. Not only because I think you're so hot or I'm so attracted to you, but now that we're together in person, I can really feel it. I mean, I am in love with you, right? So that would be a viable narrative as well. I kind of offer that up because I feel like the narrative that they decided upon, they seem to be really kind of forcing it in there to reassure the two of them about it.
Yeah.
I don't know that, you know what I mean? That's why our
falling in love
relationship is so
in 7 days. Like,
Are you in love?
babe.
Of course.
Of course I am.
Oh, I love it. You're so cute.
All right, so he asked for reassurance and she was like, oh my God, yes, of course. So that was a good moment to have. We need those reassurances throughout our relationship and of course in the beginning as well.
So what about when we go back to Dallas? What about whenever other guys are there, whenever other people are hitting on you or what it is? How are you respond to it?
I mean, honestly, okay, that's probably not gonna be like the best answer, but like it's so good to like actually be like, oh no, I'm taken.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
All right, so he's asking explicitly, now that we're together, what about when guys start hitting on you? What are you going to do? And then she says what she says to reassure him, and he says, okay, I love that, thank you. Some people might assume that that's what would happen, but you don't know, right? You barely know these people, so it's good that they're having this conversation. And really, it's Matt is asking for, do you love me enough? Do you care about me enough? Do you have integrity about our relationship enough?
Raven seems to be very playful, but also she's a little negative. I can't. I'm done. Honestly, I was kind of surprised that she was on the top of your list.
All right, so Nancy is bringing up the topic of Raven, I think for obvious reasons. The last time they were talking about it, Bartise was saying, oh my God, me and Raven, we're a total match, and she's beautiful, and we're the same in that when we both walk into a room, everyone wants to meet us because we're both so beautiful. And normally I would be with a Raven, and he didn't really say anything to reassure Nancy that he loved her. And Nancy, I'm guessing, had a lot of revelations in that moment. I don't know, but possibly one being, I don't want to be with Bartise anymore. I'm not going to marry this guy. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. And then also, oh my goodness, Bartise is kind of full of himself. I don't know if he is, but kind of came across that way. Nancy could also conclude that Bartise is immature. The way that he was saying it, or at the very least, doesn't really think about how he's coming across, doesn't consider other people's feelings. He comes across as such a nice guy and a nice person, right? But in that moment, there was a lot of contrast. For me, watching, I thought, whoa, I didn't know Bartise was like that. I don't know if it's indicative of his personality. It could just be that he's being honest with Nancy, but deep down really loves Nancy. I don't know. It also would be completely normal for Bartise to still be wondering, or for everyone on the show to still be wondering about whether or not it's a good idea for them to actually marry the person that they're engaged to. There's a lot of questions. So she's bringing it up, and now they are going to revisit it, I guess. And he doesn't look like he's looking forward to this conversation.
Last night, Bartise mentioned Raven would definitely be the type of girl that I date, like body type wise. But the whole point of this is that our foundation was built off of that emotional connection, and Raven emotionally couldn't have been who he wanted and needed. Yeah, I hear that discourse often on the show. People will say something like, you're not following the premise of the experiment. And Nancy just said that. She's like, look, the whole premise of this experiment that you agreed to do was that if you fall in love with someone in the pods, that you would marry them regardless of what they look like. That's the whole point of this. And okay, but at the same time, people and their attraction and their heart and their love and their motivation might not be in sync with the experiment, right? Someone could try to stick it out with someone that they fell in love with in the pods, but there might not be any chemistry there, or they might not be attracted to their partner that they've met in the pod. And you don't want to force a square peg into a round hole, so to speak, right? They said this sort of thing also on The Ultimatum. They also, the little bit that I've watched of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, they will say that too, that like when, I can't remember her name, Greg and someone went, that she had narrowed it down to 3 fellas, and it seemed like she was really into one of the 3. It seemed like Greg was that person. And the rules are that she can't tell, because it would make sense that for some of the bachelors and bachelorette that they would make a choice earlier on, right? They wouldn't make a choice in the very end, but the premise of the show is you have to wait until the very last moment before you outwardly make a choice. I think you're even supposed to not even make an inner choice, but that would be natural that you would make. And so what Greg was saying is like, I don't understand why you're following this stupid rule. I mean, he wasn't phrasing it that way, but he was kind of saying that. Anyway, yeah, I've reacted to that whole thing. And then there was that other bachelorette who basically, before anyone was eliminated, she was like, that is my guy. And it completely ruined the show. And I'm thinking, well, the whole idea of this show is that the bachelor or bachelorette is that they meet someone that they want to marry, right? And
these are human lives. This isn't just some regular game show like The Price is Right. I mean, these individuals, their entire lives are at stake here. So many things, the kids, having a family, living with someone, it's a big deal. And so if the Bachelorette is like, I don't need to meet any more people on the first day, that is my guy. My goodness, we have a lot of chemistry and I'm ready to make a commitment now. I feel like they should be able to do that without people, now production, I could understand getting upset, right? That the producers, because they're like, we need to string this out. But I don't think the audience should get upset at them. But anyway, it makes sense that Nancy would feel that way. And she seems crying. So does this not go well for her? I would imagine this is not going to go well. Let's rewind that.
The whole point of this is that our foundation was built off of that emotional connection.
See, it looks like she's crying, which would make total sense. I mean, the way Bartise was talking, it's so hurtful and devastating. So, yeah.
When I went to the pod with Raven, I knew I'd have to bring the energy and she'd be kind of trying to match me. But for me and you, it was just like, boom, boom, boom. We're climbing on each other. We're climbing on each other, And so that's what I fell in love with. I just couldn't get you out of my gut when I was trying to have a date with Raven. I was just...
All right, so maybe this will reassure her. He could have said this the previous night, but he's now saying it. Maybe he did, and they didn't show it. But this could absolutely reassure her that he does love her and he does want to be with her. There's a possibility he doesn't, but I guess we'll find out together, right?
Like, these girls are like completely opposites. Like, I'm doing? Like, what am I sitting here like falling in love with two girls and they're just like completely different like this? So that's when I was like, you know what? I have to end this whole thing with Raven now because Nancy's my number one by far. And like, that's who I want to continue going with. Come here.
All right, so seems like he might have redeemed himself in her eyes. It's also possible that the previous night when he was a little intoxicated, he was more honest about what's really going on with him. And now I feel like, especially after the second season, watching the show, I don't necessarily trust the people. I don't know what's happening, but it seemed like on season 2, there were some people, maybe even some couples, where they had made a choice and maybe even communicated off camera that they were definitely not going to work out and they definitely did not want to marry each other. But I think they get a lot of pressure from the outside, meaning production. I think they're under contract to some extent. I think money might be involved. I don't know. Or they risk being completely erased off of the show entirely if they don't go through all the steps, meaning that they actually go to the altar. Because if you think about it, of course, because the whole premise is that on the altar is when you finally really commit to yes or no. Let's just take a guess and make an assumption that the individuals, long before they're on the altar, the day, earlier that day or 3 weeks prior, that many of these individuals have already firmly made a choice as to whether or not they're going to say yes or no. I would imagine that would be true. But they have to string it out, right? They have to, I guess, act like they're together. So I don't know if that's what we're seeing right now with Bartise. And I don't like that kind of thinking because it kind of ruins it to some extent because it could all just be faked. But now there's a possibility that if that's true about Bartise, and I don't know, he might not tell Nancy because Nancy seems still like she's wanting this to work. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
And seeing her in the flesh, it makes sense. Like, gorgeous girl. I told her this. I was like, listen, like, on paper, me and you make sense. You're fucking gorgeous. You're fit. Like, we look good to the naked eye. If you were to look at Raven, look at me, and we're at a bar, we're at a restaurant, that would make sense.
All right, so he's saying it again. I think he might be more sober this time. I'm not sure, but maybe he is giving this lead in because he's going to clarify this for Nancy and say, that's all true because he's already said this and he's reiterating it. So maybe he'll establish that, yes, that's what I was saying, but I love you and I want to be with you. Or is he just in this mode again where he likes to talk in this vein, which is off-putting?
But if you compare that to me and your relationship, our connection was emotional. Our connection was energetic. Our connection was fun. It was easy. We're making connections based on what we're saying, not based on who we are physically.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a very similar demeanor and reaction I think she is having another moment where she's like, oh boy, what have I done? I don't know. So similar situation with Cole, right? Bartise has emotionally feeling connected to Nancy, but is very attracted to Raven. Now, I didn't show the scene, but it seems like Raven is not into Bartise and is into SK. And it sounds like Raven and SK are feeling connected-ish, but they haven't been intimate. I don't know if that's a choice that they're making, religious. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like they want to be intimate physically, but they haven't been. So the Raven and SK thing, it seems like they're trying to make it work and possibly haven't really admitted to themselves yet or each other that it's not going to work. I don't know. I can't really tell with them because they're both pretty reserved. But anyway, let's see how Nancy reacts.
Do you think Raven and SK would say yes?
I honestly think they're both going to say yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if they edited that or what's happening, but then he follows it up with, what do you think? Do you think Raven is going to say yes to SK? Because, I might want to be with, is that what he's doing right now? I don't understand.
But in my previous relationships, I've fallen in love before, not on this level, but in my previous relationships, that love has fizzled out. And I can't identify a reason for that having happened. It's just I have lost interest in the girl that I was in love with.
All right. That's honest. He's just telling, I think, his story, which comes across as off-putting, right? But it's good that Nancy knows this. I think Bartise could be withholding this and hide this, either because he doesn't want to reveal it, because he doesn't want to be seen as a dirtbag, or he wants to string her along. He's just telling her. So she knows. She now knows what is possible on a number of levels. And so he's saying that he will fall in love and then that'll fizzle out. Okay, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Certainly the way he presents it, it comes across as potentially arrogant, as off-putting, as he feels like he's better than other people, or he gets bored, loses interest. What does that mean? Because, when you fall in love with someone, it's not like you're just interested in them. Well, there's a lot of different ways of talking about love, right? But I would imagine that Nancy would rather hear something different. And I, watching it from the outside, am concerned that he doesn't really know himself yet well enough to be able to determine if he's in love and in a way that is long-term. Because usually you can tell once you cross a certain threshold of maturity. I don't think I've ever thought about this before. How do we, when we fall in love and we think, we make that commitment, and especially once you decide to get married, to be engaged, that you're thinking, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the one. We're making a prediction about the rest of our lives, potentially decades, that we believe we will always be in love with this person. Now, of course, we are often wrong about that. Statistics show something around 40% of new first-time marriages, 50% of all marriages, taking into consideration marriages that are second, third marriages for people, end in divorce. And presumably the vast majority of those people, upon getting married or engaged, at least believe that they're always going to want to be with that person. But a lot of times we're right. Another way to put it is, half the time we are right that indeed we did want to be with that person for the rest of our lives. Now, not every couple that stays together wants to be together, but anyway, so he's saying, I feel in love with you now, which I kind of question given the way that he talks about it. But in the past, I've fallen out of love. So maybe this is his way of warning her that he is questioning on the inside, and he doesn't know how to articulate that, or doesn't want to say it directly, that he's like, look, I'm in love with you, but I've fallen out of love in the past, because he is worried about her. There's some compassion there, some altruism, like, you should know that, you should be forewarned that I might actually fall out of love with you, and so you might want to consider that before you commit to me or something. I guess that would be nice that he would say that, Yeah. So I think Nancy is getting a good idea of what she's dealing with. And I wouldn't be surprised if the previous night she's like, what? And then today she's able to answer that question and say, yeah, not for me. Not a good bet. Not what I'm looking for.
I feel like it's real, but I'm just worried that there might be a fizzle out aspect because we need to experience each other more in Dallas, not in this beautiful fairy tale. You know what I'm saying? If we held a wedding right here, right now, what do you think the answer would be?
Yes.
Yeah. Your answer right now?
Really? Okay. Why? I mean, I guess you're riding on the established connection that you felt when you were in the pods, because post-pods, at least what we've seen on... Now, we don't see everything, right? There's a lot of things that happen off camera. Of course, all the physical things are off camera, so...
Now would be yes? Really? Even though we've never gone through any challenges?
Yes.
You don't know how I handle any conflict? You're going to jump into this as open as we get?
Sign me up. I'm good.
Sign you up.
Yeah.
Does it seem sincere to y'all? Let me know in the comments. I don't know. When I watch the show, I often will realize that the way I'm reading things is different than the way others, which is fine. It's hard to know, but that didn't seem super sincere to me. Now, if she wasn't sincere, why would she not be sincere? She could be not sincere because she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. She can't admit it to herself. She doesn't want to reveal to the production team because I think they're under contract, or there's a lot of emotional pressure for the cast members at this stage to say yes, even if it's a no, and to say yes if it's a yes, but to never say no if it's a no. Well, have we seen that? I think it's possible we might have, where someone might say like, well, I don't know what I'd say. I might say no, but I'm still willing to work it out, which would string the audience along a little bit. So I don't know. Let's rewind that. Tell me if you think this is sincere.
The answer would be?
Yes.
Yeah. Your answer right now would be yes? Really? Even though we've never gone through any challenges?
Yes.
You don't know how I handle any conflict? You're going to jump into this as open as we get?
Sign me up. I'm good.
Sign you up.
Yeah.
Now, maybe her strategy is that she's having some questions, but she really wants this to work. And she is calculating that if she comes across as 100%, then that will help him to feel more secure, and it won't put up a wall between the two of them. And then the two of them will live happily ever after. You know, I could see that happening. We also have to wonder why he's so not believing her. That he's like, really? What? Really? Yes? Are you sure? Which lends itself to my hypothesis that he's in a different way, but similar to Cole, and that he's a very honest person, that he just says what is on his mind. He doesn't conceal things. And in this moment, he's like, really? How could you say that? And maybe even revealing for himself that he has questions. It's like, I would imagine you would have questions because I have questions. It kind of sounds that way.
I just want you.
That face isn't very encouraging. Well, I guess it could be a lot of things. That face could be like, wow, okay, that's awesome. I love you too. Or is it fear of, holy crap, I'm going to have to hurt this person? Or, holy crap, this doesn't feel good? I don't know. Now, you would think that if he felt similarly, even in the ballpark, he would reciprocate, like, oh my God, me too. I didn't show the clip, but Matt and Colleen had that style of communication where they were like, oh my God, me too. I love you too. Oh my God, you're the best too. You know, quickly reciprocating, because that's, I think, what typically people do, particularly in the beginning of relationships. So I think that face might have revealed something. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Tune in next time when I continue watching, and everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really, really do.